Careblazer, welcome back. In today's video, you're going to hear me chat with Dr. Greg Gatchell. He's a medical doctor and he specializes in lifestyle medicine. In today's interview, he's going to talk about what lifestyle medicine is, why it's so important, especially for dementia caregivers. And then at the end of the interview, he talks about what are some specific steps dementia caregivers can take from a lifestyle medicine perspective. If you're worried about your health at all, especially worried about maybe your health declining at a faster rate than your loved one with dementia, you don't want to miss out on this interview and all of the goodness that Dr. Gatchell shares with you today. Let's hop on over to the interview. Dr. Gatchell, thank you so much for being here and being willing to talk all things lifestyle medicine for my Careblazers. Before we jump into all the details about what lifestyle medicine is and how this is something that dementia caregivers can really benefit from, take a moment to introduce yourself to all of us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Greg Gatchell, and I'm a physician. I'm a family medicine physician, and I also specialized in geriatrics, which is the care of older adults. And I've worked with a lot of patients with dementia and their families. And I also became, a little bit later, I became board certified in something called lifestyle medicine, which I'm sure we'll be talking a little more during our talk today. And I worked quite a while in geriatrics, and one of the things that got me into geriatrics was I was really close with my grandparents. Actually, I grew up in a real small town in Ohio, and my grandparents lived pretty close to where we lived, and actually my grandparents lived one block apart from each other. So when my parents were growing up, they'd just live one block apart from each other. So they knew each other for a long time. And actually, both of my grandmas had dementia. One of them had Alzheimer's dementia, and then the other one had vascular dementia. And I got to kind of see that process, kind of knowing them my whole life and, seeing how they were and knowing them well before their dementia diagnosis, and then see their gradual decline. And one of the things I went into geriatrics initially was, thinking about my grandparents, and, they gave a lot to me. So I thought it was one way to kind of give back to the caregivers and to patients with dementia and treating them. And I worked quite a bit in the outpatient taking care of older adults, including patients with dementia. And then I also worked in the nursing homes quite a bit as well. And just seeing kind of all the different stages of things when people had early dementia, kind of the middle stages, and then the late stages. And then I got really interested in something called lifestyle medicine, just basically after caring for a lot of patients that were more advanced in age, and kind of seeing how some patients lived one certain lifestyle and how other patients lived a different lifestyle, and how I saw some older adults that were really thriving. And then I also saw patients who were even more middle-aged, and they were becoming patients in the nursing home and becoming more debilitated. So that's what got me really interested in lifestyle medicine, is trying to help people not end up in the nursing home, or kind of delaying that occurrence, and just trying to keep people as healthy and happy as they can be for as long as possible.
Yes,
So
I love it.
Just a little background.
Now, just so you know, about 30 minutes before we went live here, I posted on my Instagram account just saying I'm about to interview Dr. Gatchell. We're going to talk about lifestyle medicine. If you have any questions, maybe we'll have an opportunity, I can ask him to answer them. But first, have you ever heard of lifestyle medicine? And 100% of people said no. they've never heard of lifestyle medicine, which is a shame. And I think speaks a lot to like how we've kind of approached medical care, especially for, I mean, lifestyle medicine's for anybody, but especially for older adults. And I mean, I knew it was going to be a high level of no, but I didn't think 100% of the people, how many people, hang on here, 75%, 75 people. What? Okay. Well, so it's updating, so one person now says yes, it's no longer 100%. But okay, so because it's very clear that I think a lot of people have no idea what lifestyle medicine is or have never heard about it before, can you just take some time to explain what this is?
Sure. And yeah, even a lot of physicians don't know about lifestyle medicine. It's been around for a little while, over 10 years. And I got board certified in 2018, and people, physicians and the public are still learning about it. And in a lot of ways, ideally it's kind of the first line of things that we want to try to treat things with, different conditions with lifestyle changes, as opposed to just jumping to either medications or procedures. A lot of times it depends on the scenario, but I'm just going to read the definition from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and then I can maybe put it in more layman's terms as well. But I just have it here. So lifestyle medicine, this is from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, is the use of evidence-based lifestyle therapeutic approaches, such as predominantly whole food, plant-based diet, regular physical activity, adequate sleep, stress management, avoidance of risky behaviors, and other non-drug modalities to treat, oftentimes reverse and prevent the lifestyle-related chronic disease that's all too prevalent. So yeah, that's kind of a nutshell. And evidence-based treatment just means it's based on research, based on studies. So the goal is to use these different lifestyle modalities to treat illness.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this is like, I love this whole lifestyle medicine. I'm glad it's starting to become more known, starting to get out there more and more. But I'm curious, like, what's an MD doing in lifestyle medicine, right? Like this, you think like for the most part, you go to a medical doctor, they're going to give you a medicine, right? Like, I think that's like a lot of people's experience. So as a medical doctor, can you just talk a little bit about like what would be one of those chronic conditions, or what would be a condition somebody might present with, and how you as a doctor might approach that from a lifestyle medicine standpoint?
Sure. So, like I said, I've worked in geriatrics for quite a while, over 10 years. And actually I transitioned to doing lifestyle medicine and something called obesity medicine full time. So majority of my patients are coming in, they're referred to our clinic with obesity. And then along with obesity, there's a lot of common ailments. Probably diabetes is one of the most common. And so we would, on our initial visit, we take a very thorough history and the lifestyle habits, kind of evaluating this, which I'll talk more about, but I call SALADS is the mnemonic that I use. But it's basically looking at the lifestyle habits and then seeing what areas are deficient, and then coming up with a plan. So just for example, if someone has obesity or overweight, then we would work on looking at their diet and looking at the sleep habits. We might put a calorie restriction. We may change the quality of the foods that are being eaten. For example, if it's more highly processed food or sugar sweetened beverages, we'd work on switching to choices that would be more whole food based, like fruits and vegetables, drinking more water instead of soda, some things like that. We might actually start monitoring the calories and having a calorie restriction. And sleep is a real important one. So we'd look at someone's sleep and evaluate their sleep and treat that if needed. Look at the stressors, look at all these different lifestyle components and come up with a very comprehensive plan. And then the thing is with the lifestyle habits, most people, it took a while to get those habits and it takes a while to change them. So it's a lot of goal setting and setting small goals and working on habit change over time, because it does take time to change a habit.
Yeah, so you're looking at the big picture of all the different things that can factor into somebody's health. And so, like you mentioned, diabetes, which is a big one. So I would imagine there might be people coming to you who either are already on medications for diabetes, or maybe they're at risk for needing those medications. Could lifestyle medicine be something that could potentially prevent them from needing medicine, or maybe even being able to reduce how much medicine they're taking for that?
Yes, I see it very often where when people have changes in their lifestyle habits, and in particular when someone has some weight loss, then if someone loses 5 to 10% of their weight, it can actually prevent someone from getting diabetes. And people who have diabetes, even patients that are on insulin that we work with, we see them decreasing their insulin amounts, getting off some of their medications. And in the ideal case, we could reverse someone's diabetes, or technically they say if someone has diabetes, they always have it, but we can essentially put it in remission where their blood sugars are controlled, and ideally get off some, if not all, of their medications. And I've seen people come off their insulin or decrease their insulin by quite a bit. And
I mean, that's huge.
One thing with it, yeah, oh yeah, it's really rewarding. I really enjoy doing it. It's just very rewarding for myself and also for the patient, because most people don't like taking medication, and it can save them money and the hassle of poking themselves often to get their injections, and the cost that's associated with it. And
I also think, like, I've worked a lot with, I noticed it more significantly when I was doing work in people's homes, like through home-based primary care. And so they would have all their medicines out all the time, where they'd be tracking their blood sugar levels. But sometimes that's a hard thing for some people to do, especially if they're starting to show cognitive impairment. Like, that could be quite dangerous sometimes. Like, we've had a couple scary instances of people taking more insulin than they should have, and then them trying to navigate that. And so this is a beautiful approach that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like, this lifestyle medicine could be applied not only to the dementia caregiver, which is like everybody could be doing this right now. This can, dementia caregivers are at risk for dementia themselves. They're worried about its chronic stress, all these kinds of things. So it could help them, but it could also help people who already have dementia, correct?
Right. And unfortunately, so far, there's not really good treatments for dementia, or, as far as we know, preventing dementia. But actually, lifestyle habits are some of the things that can actually have been scientifically proven to delay the onset of dementia. So it can help with improving multiple areas in the body. And actually, it's kind of interesting. There's someone named Dean Ornish, and he's one of the pioneers in this field. And he has this thing he calls the Unifying theory of disease, where he suspects that a lot of these different diseases, and he's also studying Alzheimer's, and he looked at prostate cancer, he's looked at heart disease, that they all basically have the same mechanism. And that mechanism is inflammation and things that are going on generally with our lifestyle behaviors that cause that inflammation. But they just manifest, like one person, it might manifest as heart disease, another person it might manifest as diabetes, another person it may manifest as a rheumatologic disorder, an inflammatory disorder, autoimmune disorder, all these things. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, to me personally, I think lifestyle medicine should come before a lot of other medicines, or should be considered first, especially when we're talking about chronic conditions. It's crazy to me that this is something that is, like, we're just now starting to make it, like, known, and people are starting to get board certified in it, and it's becoming like a actual practice physicians are doing, but it's like, shit, this, how did we pass this to straight medicine? I'm like, that's a whole nother topic. I won't go off on a tangent on that, but so what I'm going to say, basically, like, I think most people know this, and they're probably a little bit sick of hearing like diet, medicine, sleep, stress, self-care, lower your stress. We know all the benefits to it. There's no question, yet it seems like it's really hard for so many people. What do you do to help? Like, I imagine some of my Careblazers are watching, and they might have diabetes, they might be overweight, they might have, some other chronic conditions, and they're like, yeah, I know I need to do all these things, but like they're struggling. Like, well, how do you approach that with your patients?
One way I think that's really helpful is accountability. So having someone to be accountable to. So a lot of times I'll have my patients checking in on a regular basis, and we make some small goals, but a lot of times if we personally make goals, then it does improve our chance of achieving them. But if we also make these goals and then we're accountable for it, if someone's checking in on us, it really helps. Just like if our teacher gave us a homework assignment, but they didn't give us a due date, we wouldn't do it. But for a lot of people, when they have that homework assignment, even if they're cramming the night before, they're going to get it done because they know they have to be accountable for it when they get their homework graded. So just giving people goals and just making that accountability. So in 2 weeks, we're going to follow up to see if you're eating more vegetables since the last time we talked, or if you can lose 1 pound by the next time we talk, or 2 pounds, or just making small manageable goals. And I think one thing that physicians are not as well trained in is behavior change and the goal setting. And there's something called motivational interviewing. So it's actually working together with the patient. And in a way, the physicians of the past, I think, were a little more focused on telling the patient what to do. And what I try to do, and it's basically a lot of other physicians are doing this now, and a lot of other people in the health field are doing this as well, as joint decision making. So we kind of come up with a goal that it's not necessarily my idea, but it's their idea or our idea, that we come up with a plan of how do we think we can get you a little healthier between now and next time? What do you want to work on? And then they may say, I want to lose weight like 2 pounds, but then we might go into more detail. Well, okay, that's a good goal. That seems reasonable. It's specific, but how do you want to lose that 2 pounds? How are you going to do it? And, it might be, I'm going to only have 1 soda a week instead of 10, or, we come up with a plan that way.
Yeah, they're more likely to follow it when they are participating in the development of it, and you're actually getting the ideas from them versus them just listening to something you recommend and then not doing anything when they leave. So it sounds like in lifestyle medicine, you're having more frequent, maybe shorter, I don't know, but more frequent appointments than traditional like primary care appointments would necessarily have.
Right. And one thing I like about it too is I always like to learn, but I also like to teach. So I do a lot more teaching. So I think initially physicians were more teachers, and I feel like I'm able to do a lot of teaching with my patients and spend a lot of time educating on, why brown rice is better than white rice, or what is a whole grain, or what is fiber, and all these different topics. And then when someone understands, instead of just saying eat more vegetables, but if we also have that education where these are the reasons why you want to eat more vegetables, it has fiber, it makes you more satisfied, it feeds your microbiome, there's all these different benefits that we go into detail. And then when they make the goal, then they know why they want to make the goal. Because if I educate them on why vegetables are so important, then that might make them more motivated to have a goal of eating more vegetables.
Yeah. And this might be for another conversation, and maybe not one, for this channel, but just curious, like very briefly, is it challenging to do lifestyle medicine with the way insurance and hospitals are set up? Because I don't see that most of the systems I'm familiar with and worked in, like there's a lot of pressure to get somebody in and out and how much time you can spend with somebody. And so with lifestyle medicine, with the education, with the teaching, accountability, motivational interviewing, which I'm familiar with, I've been trained in that as a psychologist in terms of like getting feedback from them. It's not just like, here you go, this is all you have to do and leave. It's like, it's more time consuming sometimes, and at least more frequent. Is it just a matter of finding a great system that allows for that? Or is this like lots of positive changes happening in the healthcare system that I'm not aware of and people are granted more time with their patients?
Yeah, they're now, we can bill either by time, we can bill by time or complexity. So if we have a longer visit with discussing these, having the education, we can bill for time. And then for example, for lifestyle medicine, if someone is, for example, sedentary, or they're having weight gain, or if they have obesity, or if they have diabetes, we can basically code for that, just like a kind of a traditional visit. And we're still doing a treatment. And actually, a lot of, for example, with diabetes, the first line of treatment is actually lifestyle changes. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, in medical school, in the past, there hasn't been that much education on how to both go about the lifestyle sort of treatments, and there's minimal nutrition education that is received in medical school, and just the tools of how to talk to patients about the behavior change, like we talked about earlier. So, and there's so many medications that physicians are well educated in. So I think that sometimes often becomes the initial treatment. And I think also it can be frustrating, especially for physicians when they see their patients. They might recommend, hey, you got to do more, change your diet and exercise, and then come back and see me. But there might not be that level of goal setting and motivational interviewing and just having all the tools to get that behavior change.
And accountability and all that. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, for being so honest, because I think when we first met, we talked a little bit about, like, I think people would be floored if they knew, like, just because you are a medical doctor or a psychologist or whatever your profession is, I think the public might think, like, we actually got some specialty training in geriatrics or in dementia or in lifestyle medicine or in how to motivate and improve behavior change. But like, really maybe a day, like when you think about like unless you've pursued certain paths, like you have with lifestyle medicine, most people aren't getting training in lifestyle medicine. Unless you pursued a path of like working with people with dementia, most people got very little experience, like in life, like working with dementia. Like in my graduate school program, it was like one like chapter of a book on like it was just like not a thing that they dedicated time to. And I think what I want to say is it really is important who you choose as your healthcare providers, and why there are specialty providers in certain areas, because just because you have the same initials behind your name doesn't equate to the same level of knowledge and training for certain things. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure. And I think there's so much to learn. Just, there's so many things to learn. And I think just over time, certain areas take more priority. And I feel like that is kind of starting to change, because now in medical schools, they're starting to teach lifestyle medicine. And even some of the medical schools that are a little more progressive, they even have kitchens, and the doctors are learning how to cook, and they're learning how to teach their patients how to prepare food.
Yeah. So. And I love like the Sure's Eyes. I always talk about them on my channel. They're out of Loma Linda, and they do plant-based whole food, and they're neurologists, and they're talking about this. And I'm like, we're starting to see a wave. It's starting to come, but it's like that we should have started with that, but that's okay. I don't want to get too detracted from that. So For caregivers, this is clearly something lifestyle medicine, anybody could be doing it. Like, what would you say would be takeaway things somebody watching this video can start doing in their life right now, even if they have some chronic conditions already? Like, not obviously they need to be talking to their own healthcare providers, but like, what are some general good guidelines, if you can share some for my audience?
Sure. So I have a lot of different ones, and hopefully it's not too much. But
No, go for it.
but yeah. So I have this little mnemonic. I call it salads that I made up. And so salads, it's sleep. That's the S. The A is activity. The L is love and connection. The A is addictions and avoiding addictions. The D is diet, and the S is stress relief. So
I love
generally.
it.
Yeah, so those are the things to kind of focus on, is the salads, which are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. I just put it into a mnemonic that I like to use. So, and in general, so as far as the sleep, it's just, we didn't really know that much about sleep in the past, but we're learning more and more. And it's actually very important to get sleep. And there's actually some thoughts that not getting enough sleep is a risk for dementia, in particular Alzheimer's, because that's when they found out the brain has these little lymphatic channels, and or glymphatic channels they call them, and that's when our brain kind of it gets scrubbed and cleaned at nighttime when we're sleeping. So we want to make sure that we get enough sleep, and generally we should be getting at least 7 hours. And then as far as the A, activity, just want to try to include some activity each day. Ideally, just minimize. They have a saying like to sit less and move more. So trying to do that, and everyone probably has different capacities of how much they can move, and sometimes it's best to talk with your doctor of what the best exercise plan would be. But just trying to sit less and move more. And then the love and connection is really important. And I know a lot of times caregivers can feel isolated and lonely. And that actually they found that it's really bad for our health to be lonely. And that there is like a difference between solitude and loneliness. So solitude is kind of if we're like reading a good book, or we're doing something alone that we are really having fun with. But if we're feeling more just lonely in general, then that can cause a lot of negative health consequences. So being in a group like this with Careblazers is a really good thing for one's health, because it gets that social connection.
And I always say it, like, the research is not about how many friends you had. Like, it doesn't matter. You could have 100 friends or so-called friends, but if it's the feeling of loneliness, that's the risk factor, So it doesn't matter if you have one great friend that you're socially connected to and talking to, like, that's okay. Sometimes I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes people feel like, oh, like I'm more of an introvert, or I don't have a lot of people or friends and family around. Like, it's not about the number. It's really about that loneliness.
Yeah, and you can even get connection with a pet, or even just getting out of nature. Like, there's all these different ways to get connection. And then the A is addictions. So trying to avoid addictions that can affect the health, alcohol in particular, and tobacco are some of the common ones. And I know some people might use alcohol to help them sleep, but that actually disrupts the sleep and decreases the quality of the sleep, and has a lot of negative side effects. And then
are we talking about like true addiction to alcohol, or are we saying like all in all we should avoid it?
That's a good question. Definitely if someone's having more drinks than what would be recommended. And in general, for older adults, it's more than one per day. But it can also depend on someone's medical conditions. So certain medical conditions and the medications that someone is taking, it might be best to avoid, because there can be interactions. And I think, it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. But there are some feelings that it's a debated area, but there's some thoughts that that any alcohol might not be the best for our health, but it is a debated option area. But it just in general, if there is the feeling of an addiction where we feel like we're having trouble not, quitting or cutting back, then oftentimes that would need more evaluation and just awareness of that.
Yeah.
And then the D would be our diet. So the things that we eat may cause inflammation or may cause decrease in inflammation. And there's always that saying that food is medicine. So the things that we eat can really affect our health conditions, and generally just trying to have eat whole foods. So it'd be looking closest of what it would look like if it was grown, like, an apple, for example, versus apple pie or applesauce. Like, you want to try to get it closest to the apple form, the whole fruit. And same thing with vegetables, the whole grains like brown rice or whole wheat. Also the nuts and seeds and healthy proteins. It's kind of just a general rule of thumb. And then the last S for salads would be the stress relief. So trying to have some stress reduction, which as a caregiver is very important. And basically our bodies were built for to have stress, but not to deal with chronic stress, which is real common in caregivers. And, I saw that in a lot of the caregivers that I took care of. Oftentimes the patient with dementia I was taking care of, but I saw the caregivers that I talked to quite a bit and had a lot of interactions. I saw them oftentimes getting sick. And I remember some of them actually getting cancers, and then they were trying to figure out, they've taken such good care of their loved one, but they missed their doctor's appointments, they missed their mammograms and all these different things. And then they're getting really sick. And actually that happened with my grandfather where, after he was caring for my grandmother, and he had after, in that time period, he had 2 different cancers and also worsening heart disease, which I'm sure was related to the stress, because he really took care of her very well, but just up until he really couldn't do it any longer. And then eventually she went to a nursing home, but I could just personally, I could see the stress and how it affected his health. And then generally, our bodies, we were made for acute stress. If a lion was chasing us or a brontosaurus was chasing us, that's kind of how our bodies were designed. But, eventually we would either get eaten or we would escape it. And if we escaped, then we would just relax after that. But the chronic stress is what we're not built for, is having that tiger chasing us all the time, or we're just not built for chronic stress. So, and then it's important to have little breaks, ideally every day. And whether someone's religious or not, a lot of the major religions around the world have a day of rest once a week. So there's probably some wisdom in that we need a day of rest at least once a week as well. So
yeah, just because I know my Careblazers so well, I imagine some of them could feel really discouraged, thinking to themselves, well, caregiving doesn't get a day rest a week, or I can't sleep. My sleep, it's not possible for me to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep because I'm up every 2 to 3 hours when my loved one is wandering or calling out loud but I just want to say, I'm sure that there's value in just even working on some of them. Ideally we want to address all of the salads, right? But even if it's just picking 1 or 2 areas that you feel you could do or improve on this time, there's still benefit to that, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just any self-care is better than no self-care. I have a couple different things that I could recommend if that's okay. Please. Just so one thing would be just trying to schedule some time for self-care. So I know just just in general, we might have a to-do list, and maybe our to-do list is exercise, or maybe it's have some stress relief, or whatever thing is there, someone's self-care. But the best way is actually to schedule it. So if your loved one was going to have a doctor's appointment and it's on the schedule, you're going to take them to that appointment. But if you have for your self-care, if you put that on the schedule, you actually have a time when you're going to do it. And then it becomes more real. You actually put it on the calendar, you set a reminder. And if you have that as one way to try to get in your self-care, and it could be a lot of different things. Another thing I tell a lot of my patients in general, that because I treat actually right now in the obesity medicine clinic, all different ages from young adults to people in their 70s and 80s. And, a lot of people, they just, as far as the eating habits, they find that it's challenging just because of their time. There's no time to have a healthy meal. So I go out to eat, or, we get fast food or eat the processed food. But one thing I find is helpful is it's called batch cooking. So if there's 1 day or 2 days a week where you can just have a couple hours where you cook some healthy, nutritious foods, or, cut up some apples or some carrot sticks or some celery sticks, or, make a salad or make a healthy soup. And then that way, when you're stressed and busy, it's already prepared and you can just grab it and go. Or instead of like trying to think that you have to make a healthy meal, 3 times a day, 7 days a week, just doing that batch cooking can be helpful.
Yeah, I love it. And I just want to highlight, like, you're a medical doctor. You're not a psychologist. You're not a nutritionist. You're not like, it's speaking to the power of, I think a lot of times people know these things are good, but I don't think they realize what a positive impact they can have on medical conditions, right? Like going back to people who have been able to put their diabetes in remission and things like that. Like, that's why, like, you're here talking about it. So you're working for a big hospital on lifestyle medicine, because the impact it has on health is so huge. And also, like, to me, it's telling me there's hope. Like, you might have one of these chronic conditions. Like, what would be some of the other common ones? I think you mentioned before, like, diabetes.
Blood pressure is a common one, heart disease, stroke prevention,
Yes.
High cholesterol.
Yes.
Yes, even insomnia, sleep disorders.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for anybody listening with any of those, like, in their problem list, medical list, diagnosis or whatever, it's like, these things can help. Like, you choose, like, my challenge for everybody watching would be like to choose one of these set pieces from the salads. Like, just choose one to start out with that you feel like you could have the most success in now, and then like slowly start to build and work on it. And but like my care course members know there's a way, like we can make improvements in all these areas for sure. But like, we don't have to put the pressure on ourselves of like, we have to revamp everything right away. And it doesn't, like you said, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. So there's a couple of quotes that come to mind when you talk, and I'm going to butcher them, of course, but I'll relay the main message. But I saw a post once, and it was something like, make time for your health now, or you'll be forced to make time for your sickness later. So like, talking about the self-care and finding time for it, it's like, either way, there's going to be time involved, but which kind of side you want to take. And then I was listening to a podcast episode actually yesterday. Forget it was on the Ed Milet podcast, but Sarah J. Young. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's really into like, I don't want to call it anti-aging. I don't like that term, but basically like health, longevity, how to keep somebody functioning at the highest quality of their life, like highest quality of life, basically at any age. And talking about sleep, how you said it's so important. That's like where we kind of like wash, like reset all those things. He was talking to a major scientist of some sort in sleep. And the guy said, you go to the best clinic possible for your health every single night. And that clinic is your sleep. Like, that is how important it is. So I know that's a hard one for Careblazers who might not be able to have that luxury of sleep. But if you do, like if you have that ability, like do those sleep hygiene things, like put the phone down, put the Instagram down, like if it's possible, definitely an area to focus on, because just hearing that, like I knew it, yet I already knew it, but like hearing these people talk about it yesterday on the podcast and just like how strongly they talked about how important it was. It's like, wow, like this really is a big deal.
Yeah, sleep it's really, it's becoming more and more popular. I mean, we've been sleeping for for a long time, but it just, I think even when I was in my residency, like I remember I would do like these 40-hour shifts and, sometimes be up for the whole time. And, I'd always say like, yeah, I'll just sleep when I'm dead. Like, I don't, it's not that important, but the more research we're getting, we're just really realizing how important sleep is. And, there's actually a great TED Talk I tell a lot of my patients to check out. There's a guy, his name's Matt Walker, and he has a TED Talk. You can watch it for free on YouTube, and it's called Sleep is Your Superpower. And he talks a lot about the importance of sleep. And I feel, I've learned a lot about sleep, and I feel that if a caregiver and their loved one with dementia, if the caregiver is learning more about sleep, then I feel like a lot of that sleep hygiene can help with their loved one as well, because there's certain habits that can be done, I think, that could improve both the sleep
Yes.
for both parties.
Yeah. And some of these things are going to positively impact the person with dementia. I imagine if the caregiver is starting to incorporate an exercise routine or even batch cooking meals, like that's going to roll over and have that natural impact on their loved one with dementia. Are you able to speak at all about just kind of the balance? Like I'm a big fan of like making sure we're addressing quality of life. So if we're talking about the person with dementia, let's say they're 90 years old, they're in the moderate to severe stage of dementia, at some point, do we focus less on the salads, and like more on just quality of life? Like if they want the dessert, give them dessert. If they want, to stay up, like let them stay. Like that's kind of it's a personal balance, but I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have, because sometimes I feel like caregivers might be wanting to do the absolute best for their loved one with dementia, and so might restrict some things, and it's almost like, where's that fine line when we're talking quality of life for somebody with advanced dementia and advanced age?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I don't know if I have the exact answer, but I think I definitely agree. Like there's some balance, because with depending on the patient's severity of dementia, then they're definitely want to focus on quality of life as well. And
Yeah.
if there's a certain dessert they really enjoy, or certain habits that might not be the best, then there's definitely something to be said about quality of life. And
Yeah.
I mean, and even my patients that I see now, I think that there should, even my patients that I work with obesity medicine, I always feel like it's okay to have a treat now and then, or, you don't have to be perfect. But one of the things that I always say is progress, not perfection.
Yes, I love
Because,
that.
yeah, just if we got a little more exercise, if we did some of those self-care things, maybe we think like, oh, I should be taking a 30-minute self-care time 7 days a week, but I only did it 3 times. I mean, you made progress because you did it 3 times. Like,
Right.
so progress, not perfection. And yeah, I think just everyone has a different situation, but just, I think balance is important.
Yeah. And then also, you don't have to answer this at all, but the question came to me when you were doing your introduction about how was it, like, what were some of the obstacles or experiences as a medical doctor, like working in the geriatric field? Because like you shifted from the geriatric field now to lifestyle medicine more specifically for people who are obese, but it's really hard to find people who are staying in geriatrics, like specializing in geriatrics. And so I don't know if, like, what are your thoughts either on the shortage of people working in geriatrics, or just so you could talk about in general, or if there was something in particular for you that you want to share?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, I think like with the shortage of geriatrics, I think unfortunately part of it is that geriatrics is probably one of the lowest paid specialties.
Yeah.
And I think, physicians, a lot of times they're coming out of school with a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And I know for me that like the money part was not really like such a focus. I think that
it's so true. Like they are part of the lowest paid, yet they're working with the most complicated, right? Like, because you're going to see somebody with a medication list of 10 to 15 medicines, multiple conditions, limited time, and probably more phone calls in between for the hospitalizations. Like, there's so many. I've worked with so many like providers. I'm thinking of one guy in particular that is my friend. He's great, like such a great geriatric provider. He left the field. He's like, I just can't. It's just too much work for not a lot of money. And I'm like, how is it that this is happening? So yeah.
Right. And I think maybe down the road that may change a bit more with value-based care. But I think a lot of also the larger institutions and things, the value of geriatrics, I think a big part of it also helps with prevention, because if you can help prevent a hip fracture, or you can help prevent a hospitalization, it can save the system money. But I think just in general, the whole prevention side of things is, I think the tides are changing, but in the past, the value of prevention, it was lower compared to the value of a procedure, for example.
Exactly. Well, it's clearly changing now that, just lifestyle medicine in many ways is, not only is it treatment for some chronic conditions, but there's a lot of prevention in there as well.
Right. Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to see that tide really change and see a lot of improvements in that area. It's just always an area that gets me fired up, because these are the people who need the most care. They're the most complicated. Yet, like, good luck finding somebody. So that brings me to my question for you. Let's say somebody's watching this and they think lifestyle medicine is something they want to go to a doctor who's at least thinking about it, who can work with them, maybe give them that accountability, maybe more frequent check-ins, like really talk about how they can improve some of their chronic conditions through lifestyle medicine. Is there a place? Like, how do you find a provider in lifestyle medicine?
That's a good question. I would say the first resource would probably be going to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. If you Google that, I believe it's aclm.org, or it might be lifestylemedicine.org.
I'll look it up and link it in the description below.
Sure, but I believe there is a directory of lifestyle medicine providers.
Okay,
so that would probably be the best way.
And then maybe, since I imagine there's not a lot of physicians like specializing in this, is that correct?
That's correct.
But I imagine most physicians could incorporate lifestyle medicine into their practice fairly easily if maybe the caregiver mentioned to their doctor, hey, I'd really like to know if there's anything I can do to improve with this without increasing medicine or something like that. They could just openly talk to their physician. And
yeah, I think it's definitely good to have that discussion with your physician, because I feel like a lot of physicians now there is this grassroots movement with lifestyle medicine, and just talking to other physicians, they find it very rewarding to be able to make these changes and change lifestyle habits and even take their patients off of medications. And and it can be very rewarding. I've talked to lots of physicians, and they find it really, really rewarding. And I think right now, with the physician burnout rate to be over 50%, that it can be a really rewarding area. And I think that it's always worth mentioning it to one's doctor to see if they're on board, or seeing if they might, to start that discussion.
Yeah.
It's always worth giving it a try.
Totally. Yeah. Worth bringing it up. Now I'm just going to check real quick, because right before I went live, like I said, I posted on my Instagram, like, what questions do you have about lifestyle medicine? Let's see if anybody wrote anything. But since, like, I guess it was like, 100%, then down to like 90% of people had no idea what lifestyle medicine was. Okay. It's now 97% no, 3% yes. Okay, let me see if anybody submitted a question. Okay, I have one person who submitted a question, probably because that was one of, like, the only person who said they knew. Oh, so I think we answered it. Yeah, it says, what are all of the components of lifestyle medicine? Would you say that's the salads, right?
That's the salads, yeah,
awesome.
The 6 pillars.
Yeah, is that what it's called? Like in training, the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, and you just made this into salads for easier remembering for people?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. Anything that I didn't ask about, or any last words you want to say to caregivers about lifestyle medicine?
I could just have a couple other ideas. And I know depending, some people might not be that techie, but I'm always a big fan of tracking our metrics, as far as if you have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring. They have all these trackers now that can tell us things like how many steps we got for the day, or they can even track our sleep. They can track.
My Garmin watch does all that.
Yeah, and I think they're really cool, and I think that in the future it's going to be even more and more advanced. Now some of them can detect your oxygen levels and your temperature and all kinds of things. And there's a saying, if you can measure it, then you can manage it. So if you can have some of those measurements, then it can help with your goals. Like if you set yourself a step goal, for example, there's oftentimes, if someone is getting less than 5,000 steps a day, then that's considered sedentary. So for a lot of my patients, I don't want them to be sedentary. So I'll set a goal to get at least 5,000. So if you have that tracker, it just kind of helps you know where you're at. Because, for example, if it's towards the end of the day and you got 4,900 steps, you're likely to do 100 more steps and to get that 5,000.
So right. Like I don't know, my watch automatically thinks of the number I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I think based on an average of the week or something. And like, if it doesn't go off, like it'll usually like buzz on my wrist. I'm like, okay, great. I hit it. If it doesn't, I'm like, okay, Nico, let's go for a walk. I don't know what's happening here. Like I need more steps. So I love it. And I will say, if you have health insurance, whoever's watching, like a lot of these fitness trackers and stuff, you can get a discount with, like your health insurance might offer a discount. So something to look into, because I did for my Garmin.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I didn't know that myself. So that's, I learned something.
I had at the time, it was Blue Cross Blue Shield. I don't have that now, but they gave a discount to get my Garmin watch.
Well, that's great. Yeah. And I know that even the insurance companies are getting more into the lifestyle medicine area. I think because it's the right thing to do, but it can also save them money, because if you could prevent someone from having diabetes or get them off of their medications, it can be a cost savings.
Totally. All right, great. That's a great tip. What else do you
have? One is also just trying to stay hydrated. And I know some patients may have fluid restrictions, and if so, talk to your doctor. But if you don't have a fluid restriction, it's just important to stay hydrated, because our body is a large percentage of our body is water. And when we get dehydrated, it can decrease our energy, and it might be harder to do that caregiving, or we may have headaches, or we can even get things like kidney stones if we're not staying hydrated enough. So trying to stay hydrated in particular, in the earlier parts of the day. I know a lot of adults, as they get older, if they drink too much before bedtime, it can disrupt the sleep and have a lot of trips to the bathroom. But just trying to go to the trying to get enough sleep, or sorry, enough water during the day, and then try to cut the water maybe 2 or 3 hours before bed.
Is there a general amount, obviously for people without fluid restrictions, but is there like a typical amount people should be shooting for in the day?
That's also kind of a debated topic, but I think probably 64 ounces is a good, which they say eight ounce glasses, eight ounce glasses. So that'd be 64 ounces is probably a good goal to shoot for. And now they even have the tech with, there's a water bottle called the Hydrate Spark that will start glowing when it's time to take a drink.
Oh, wow.
And you can get apps on your phone if you're techie that will remind you. But I think a simple way is, if you know your goal is 64 ounces, for example, if you get a bottle, you can get these like Hydro Flask or these reusable water bottles. And like if it's 64 ounces, for example, you just got to finish that one by the end of the day. Or if it's 32 ounces, you got to have 2 of those by the end of the day. So that's kind of one way to know. But staying hydrated is really important. And one thing we learned in geriatrics is as we get older, our thirst reflex decreases. So we might actually be getting dehydrated or thirsty, but our body doesn't tell us as well as when we were younger. So it's important to try to stay hydrated.
Yeah, when I had a geriatric psychiatrist on the channel, and he was basically talking about like the basic things before he like wants to prescribe medicines, like what are basic things like the person with dementia is doing. One of them was drink water, just like you said. And so many people, like unbelievable. If you go to the comments under that video, like that is so much water. It was exactly what you said, basically. And they're like, that's so, and I'm like, wow, like I think, and that's interesting to know about the thirst reflex kind of diminishes, because for a lot of people, they were just like totally blown away. That's too much water to drink in a day. And I'm like, obviously, like talk to your provider, like there are fluid restrictions, things like that. But for the most part, like, yeah, that's what we're shooting for. And I think it spoke to how many people are not even coming close to that.
Right. And you can also kind of look at your urine color too, because like if you're dehydrated, your urine will oftentimes be darker. And if you drink too much, it'll be completely clear and look like water. But if you're kind of in the Goldilocks spot of, not too much or too little, then it's going to be like a light yellow color. And of course, like some medications and things can change the urine color. Like actually in particular, B12 can make your urine more yellow. But yeah, that's just kind of a little rule of thumb is looking at your urine color.
Awesome.
As well.
Great.
And one other thing I was just going to mention too is just like about sleep is they say now that we are in a darkness deficiency period, because in the past, before the light bulbs were invented, our body, basically we have these things called circadian rhythms. And when it was bright out, then that was a signal to be awake. And then when the sun went down, that was a signal for us to go to bed. And now that we have our smartphones and we have our TVs and all of our halogen bulbs and our computers and our laptops and all these things, they emit something called blue light, which actually the blue light is one of the spectrum from the sun that it turns off, in particular melatonin. So melatonin is a darkness hormone. And so when we are exposed to that light, it tells the brain that the sun is still out and it's time to be awake. So making things a little bit darker towards the evening time. And then when it's morning time, trying to get that sunlight, because the sunlight turns off melatonin. So sometimes we might have all these screens and things, and it's real bright before bedtime. And then we wake up in the morning and it might be dark in the room and we're feeling tired, but if we get some sunlight, that'll turn off melatonin.
So is that the science behind the blue blockers?
Right. Yeah.
Is that something, I mean, I don't know if you know, is that something that could help for people? Or, I mean, ideally you should just not be on the
there's
screen in the evening, but like for me right now, I have I have a ring light. It's dark outside. It's pitch dark. It's nighttime here. I have a ring light. My brain is probably going all off wire, but I do have blue blockers right here. And I'm like, oh, should I have been wearing them? They're dirty, but does this do anything? Do these do anything?
It does. Yeah, it does help.
Okay.
And I think it's probably something that still needs some more research in that area, but it definitely makes sense. And there have been some studies that show that it is beneficial. And personally, I use blue blockers, and actually I just ordered a new pair that I'm excited to be getting. That's prescription. That's like very, very dark, that blocks out like 98%. So when I do my charting in the evenings, I'm going to experiment with that. So I'm not getting that screen late at night if I have some late charting to do on my patient charts.
Yeah, I'm on my computer like most of the day. So I definitely use those blue blockers. It makes sense that there's probably like levels of quality of those blue blockers. Like I think I got 2 for like $10. So mine are probably not very great, but it's a cheap thing that could help for any caregivers out there, that, because I know some caregivers watching are, working from home, managing their loved one. Maybe when their loved one's asleep at night, they're trying to catch up on work. That might be something that can help. So.
Right. Yeah. And even a lot of the screens, you can put it on like more of a night mode where it adjusts the amount of blue light that's expressed on the monitor or the screen. But I think in addition, the blue blockers, I personally, I feel that they're helpful, and there's a little bit of research that it can help.
Nice. Yeah. Those just seem to have gained in popularity over the past year. I feel like I hear about them all the time, but awesome. Those are great tips. Anything else before we end for today?
I think the last thing, I mean, I could probably give 100 tips, but don't want to
we'll invite you back on.
Everyone with too many things. But I think like one other thing is that I have a lot of my patients do is just make a list of the things that relax you, like the things that de-stress you, that you enjoy doing, and just make a long list. And then just like if you go to a restaurant and you have a menu and you're going to order something on the menu, when you have some time to relax, just look at the menu, because sometimes we might forget, like, oh yeah, I forgot that when I listen to music, it de-stresses me, or, when I go outside and take a walk, that de-stresses me. So just make a de-stressing list or a relaxation list, and then try to incorporate that into your day or into your week.
I love it. Yeah, I talk about that with my care course members in terms of like coming up with your self-care toolbox. Like, what is it? Like, you should have a variety of different tools that you could call on in a variety of different situations. Like, I think when the pandemic hit, it was like a perfect example of how like one of my go-tos was going to the gym and going to yoga. But when that was not possible, like if that was the main tool I had, it was like, well, what else? So it's like, what's your tool when your loved one, when you're with your loved one 24/7? What's your tool when you have some time alone? Like, what's your tool when you can't leave the house versus when you can, morning versus night, when there's people around versus not? It's like, just like for all kinds of different situations, so that you all, like, I love that. It's like your menu, your list. So no matter what is going on, like there are ideas that pop up. But a lot of times we might have in our mind what we thought we were going to do, realize, oh, well, the respite worker didn't come or the home health aide didn't come. I have to stay home. And so then we like give up on the self-care or think we can't do it. It's like, no, let's go to the menu and figure out what there is available that is possible still. So that's great. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So Dr. Gatchell, thank you so much for taking your time all the way from Hawaii to share with our Careblazers here, and for sharing part of your personal story, just like with having 2 grandparents nearby. Was it both of your grandparents that ended up having dementia? What, Alzheimer's and vascular, I think you said.
Yeah, my grandma, grandma on each side. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, thanks for sharing part of your personal story. And Careblazers, leave below what you're going to take away. Like, which on the salads, which part of the salads are you going to try to focus on? I'd really encourage you, like, consider this your accountability from us to you. Like, be accountable, put it out there, write a comment below. What are you going to focus on? Again, like Dr. Gatchell said, progress, not perfection. We're not looking for like revamping your whole life. You don't have to throw away everything in your pantry, but just like, where are you going to start? Let us know so we can support you. And thank you all so much. Thanks, Dr. Gatchell.